Justice must be served for Windy, a nursing student in Umologo, Imo State, who was brutally killed after being raped by two men because she rejected one of their advances towards her. Here is a summary of everything that happened from the beginning to the end and how they found her dead body in her room. Let's watch.
They say safety is a luxury that every student deserves. But in Umulogo, Imo State, that safety has been violently shattered. A young nursing student, Chinwendu Achumba, was brutally killed and decapitated in her own residence, leaving a community in shock, outrage, and grief. Today, we unravel the chilling details of this tragedy, the suspects involved, and the growing fears of parents, students, and residents as insecurity grips educational institutions across the country. The quiet of Umu Adara community in Umulogo, Obowo local government area was ripped apart on Thursday, May 21, 2026. Wendy Achumba, also known as Chinwendu Achumba, a promising student of the College of Nursing, was found lifeless in her apartment, her body bearing signs of extreme violence. Residents described the scene as horrifying, blood stains everywhere, an apartment turned into a tableau of fear, panic, and unimaginable cruelty. The young woman had just completed her midwifery program and was undertaking her post-basic studies, diligently preparing for a future in healthcare. But her life was cut short in a brutal act that has left her peers and the community deeply traumatized. Neighbors and community members first realized something was wrong when they noticed the absence of activity in Chinwendu's lodge. Entering her apartment, they found her body lifeless and decapitated. Witnesses say the horror of the scene was intensified by the methodical brutality of the attack. Residents immediately raised the alarm, attracting youths and local security operatives. Tensions flared as the community demanded immediate action, desperate for justice. Residents who spoke on condition of anonymity described Chinwendu as calm, diligent, and focused student, someone who had never been involved in conflict or disputes, and said nobody could have imagined such a violent end for her. As word spread, community members congregated outside her apartment, demanding swift investigation and the arrest of the perpetrators. Security forces reportedly faced angry youths, some of whom threatened to take the law into their own hands if the suspects were not apprehended immediately. The mood was one of grief mixed with outrage. Fear and anger permeated the neighborhood, with parents warning students to exercise extreme caution and peers expressing shock at the violence that had struck so close to home. The incident has reignited concerns about the vulnerability of students living off campus and the lack of effective protective measures in student lodgings and surrounding communities. Authorities quickly moved to identify and apprehend those responsible. Initial arrests revealed two suspects linked to the murder. One, a local man identified as Emmanuel, a phone charger, confessed in detail to the crime. He claimed that he had previously made advances towards Chinwendu, which he had firmly rejected. According to his confession, he and an accomplice traced her to her lodge, forcibly entered her room, and committed repeated acts of sexual violence before murdering her. The suspect described how she resisted, injuring him in the process, after which they overpowered her, carried out the assault, and eventually attacked her with a wooden object while the accomplice stabbed her with a knife. The level of violence and premeditation has shocked the police and the community alike, revealing a deeply disturbing pattern of criminality. Investigations quickly led to the apprehension of a second suspect who was implicated as the accomplice in the crime. Both suspects have now been taken into custody and are under police interrogation. The confessions indicate that the attack was deliberate and motivated for revenge, as the victim had resisted the initial sexual advances of the perpetrators. The revelation of these details has sparked outrage nationwide, prompting civil society groups, women's organizations, and student associations to demand stricter protection for female students and faster response times from law enforcement. This tragic incident is not isolated. Over recent months, the southeast and south-south regions of Nigeria have witnessed a rise in violent attacks targeting schools and students. Abductions, armed robberies, and assaults have become increasingly frequent, creating a climate of fear that affects education, livelihoods, and community trust. Parents are now anxious about sending their children to off-campus lodgings, and students themselves are living under constant stress, afraid of leaving their classrooms, libraries, or hostels. In Umulogo, the killing of Chinwendu Achumba has amplified these concerns to critical levels, with calls for immediate government action growing louder each day. The human cost of this crime extends far beyond the immediate tragedy. Fellow students report sleepless nights and heightened anxiety. Peers of Chinwendu speak of panic attacks and difficulty focusing on studies. Her friends describe her as hardworking, kind, and full of promise, and now a life that held potential to heal and save lives has been brutally cut short. Families of victims across the region have started questioning their trust in local security mechanisms, voicing frustration at what they see as insufficient protection in residential and educational areas. Every corner of Umulogo is now marked with grief, fear, and a lingering sense of vulnerability. Law enforcement officials face increasing criticism for the slow pace of preventive measures in communities surrounding schools. Local police stations, often under-resourced and understaffed, struggle to provide effective surveillance. Students living in lodgings, especially women, remain at heightened risk. Moreover, the proliferation of weapons and inadequate lighting in residential areas amplify the likelihood of violent incidents. Community vigilance is now almost a necessity as residents band together to prevent further attacks, but these measures cannot replace formal, well-coordinated security responses. Experts and civil society organizations have emphasized that this case highlights broader systemic failures in student and community protection. There are calls for strengthened campus security and mandatory registration of student lodgings, increased police presence in vulnerable neighborhoods, community watch programs integrated with law enforcement intelligence, swift legal processing of suspects to serve as deterrents. The murder of Chinwendu Achumba has become a rallying point for advocacy groups demanding structural reforms in how students' safety is ensured, particularly in off-campus accommodation. Beyond individual grief, this crime reverberates across political and social discussions. Local leaders, traditional rulers, and political figures face questions on their role in ensuring citizens' safety. The attack raises concerns about how young women can pursue education safely in regions plagued by criminal activity. National conversations about security in educational institutions are reigniting, and pressure is mounting for the federal and state government to implement sustainable policies to protect students from targeted violence. The murder of nursing student Chinwendu Achumba is a chilling reminder of the fragility of safety in parts of Nigeria. Her death underscores the urgent need for comprehensive security strategies both within campuses and surrounding communities. The personal tragedy extends into a societal warning. As Nigeria grapples with rising violence and criminal impunity, families, students, and communities are paying a heavy price. For viewers, this is more than a news story. It is a wake-up call. Every parent, student, and citizen must ask, are we doing enough to protect our children? Are our authorities prepared to confront the growing threats that target the most vulnerable among us? And as this investigation unfolds, Nigerians will be watching to see whether justice is delivered swiftly and decisively. Chinwendu Achumba's story is a story of a promising life stolen and a community traumatized. Her death should not be in vain. It is a call to action for students, educators, families, and government authorities to ensure that no other young life is lost to preventable violence. This is the stark reality of insecurity in Nigeria today, and the time for systemic intervention is now.